In the void of space where silence reigns and the stars flicker like distant memories, a question hung heavy in the air. What if the cosmos held a secret that humanity was not prepared to face? This question loomed ominously as the EOS-1 probe transmitted its latest images back to Earth, revealing not a barren landscape, but a vibrant yet horrifying tableau of life on Proxima Centauri b. Pulsating organic structures, grotesque yet mesmerizing, writhed in the dark, while colossal eyes, unblinking and ancient, seemed to observe the probe's every move. Amidst the static and distortion, a whisper emerged, one that sent shivers through the most seasoned scientists. "We are watching." Dr. Kira Voss, a biologist known for her groundbreaking research on extremophiles, sat in the control room at the Lunar Research Facility, her heart racing as she absorbed the data flooding in. Years of theories and relentless searching had culminated in this moment. Proxima Centauri b was no longer a distant dream, it was reality, and it was alive. The sleek metallic walls of the facility felt stifling as she leaned closer to the screen, the glow of the monitor casting ghostly shadows across her determined face. Kira had always been driven by an insatiable curiosity, a trait that had led her to the farthest reaches of human knowledge, and now into the depths of cosmic terror. As the team analyzed the images, the atmosphere in the control room shifted. The vibrant colors of the alien flora were alluring, but they masked a deeper horror. The structures that undulated in the footage were not merely landscapes. They were sentient, interconnected, and seemingly aware of the probe's presence. The whispers of the unknown entity crept into their minds, igniting a primal fear that transcended science. What kind of intelligence lurked in the shadows of Proxima Centauri b? And more importantly, what did it want? Kira's thoughts drifted to her childhood, to the tales her grandmother had spun about the stars, stories of ancient civilizations and forgotten gods. Those tales now echoed ominously in her mind as she recalled the night her grandmother had vanished, leaving behind only a tattered storybook and a profound sense of loss. The fear of the unknown had been ingrained in her from a young age, and now, as an adult, she found herself standing on the precipice of a mystery far greater than she could have ever imagined. The first signs of conflict emerged with the sudden interruption of the feed. The EOS-1's cameras, which had once captured vibrant snapshots of the alien world, now displayed static-laden images of darkness, as if the very air around the probe had thickened with malice. Kira's pulse quickened. Something was not right. The once promising exploration had turned sinister, and an inexplicable dread filled the air. The team exchanged nervous glances, each person acutely aware that they were no longer mere observers of cosmic wonders. They had become unwitting players in a game governed by forces beyond their comprehension. Proxima Centauri b was no longer just a planet. It had transformed into a living entity, one that pulsed and breathed with a consciousness that seemed to stretch across the fabric of reality itself. As Kira peered closer at the screen, she felt an unsettling connection to the alien world, a sense that it understood her fears, her losses, and her hopes. The vibrant ecosystem before her was a reflection of her own inner turmoil, a dance of life and death, beauty and horror. But when night fell on the distant planet, something inexplicable happened. As night enveloped Proxima Centauri b, an unnatural darkness descended, swallowing the vibrant hues captured by the EOS-1. The monitors flickered, revealing frantic images of the alien landscape, now twisted and contorted. The pulsating structures, once mesmerizing, now appeared as grotesque caricatures of life, their movements almost predatory. Kira felt the room grow colder, a tangible chill that crept beneath her skin. "Are you seeing this?" whispered Dr. Marcus Lee, the mission's chief engineer, his voice barely above a breath. He stood at the adjacent console, fingers flying over the controls, attempting to regain the lost feed. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by a deep-seated anxiety. "Something's interfering with our transmission." Kira turned to Marcus, her heart pounding. "What do you mean? Is it a malfunction?" "No," he replied, his eyes wide with fear. "It's something else. I can feel it. A presence." The room fell silent, tension thickening the air as the team exchanged uneasy glances. Each person in the control room had come to explore the mysteries of the universe, but now they were gripped by the very essence of terror. Kira's instincts kicked in, but so did her anxiety about the unknown. The fear was palpable, but she had to keep her composure. There were lives at stake here, including her own. Suddenly, Dr. Sarah Patel, the team's astrophysicist, broke the silence. "We need to analyze the data. If we can understand what's happening, maybe we can regain control." Her voice was firm, but Kira could hear the tremor beneath it. Sarah had always prided herself on her rational approach to science, and the current situation threatened to unravel her tightly wound facade. Kira nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "Let's review the last transmission. We might find a clue." As they pored over the data, a new character entered the scene. Jason, the mission's communications specialist, who had been monitoring the probe's audio feed. His face was pale, and he seemed to be grappling with something profound. "Guys," Jason said, his voice shaking, "you need to hear this. There's a sound, buried beneath the static. It's a pattern." He replayed the audio, and the room fell into an almost reverent silence as a haunting melody emerged, interwoven with whispers that seemed to beckon them closer. Kira felt a rush of conflicting emotions. The allure of discovery tugged at her, yet a deep-seated dread warned her away. "What are they saying?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking too loudly would shatter the delicate fabric of reality around them. "It's not just words," Jason replied, his eyes locked onto the screen. "It feels sentient, like it's trying to communicate." "Communicate?" Marcus scoffed, his skepticism boiling over. "We're projecting our fears onto this. It's just noise." But Kira, driven by the weight of her past, could not shake the feeling that something was watching them, something ancient and powerful. The memories of her grandmother's stories flooded back, tales of beings who gazed down upon humanity, with both curiosity and contempt. What if those stories were more than just folklore? As the tension mounted, the facility's lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room. Kira's heart raced as she realized they were not merely observers anymore. They were entwined in a web spun by forces they could not comprehend. The whispers intensified, and Kira found herself torn between the thrill of discovery and the paralyzing fear of the unknown. "Stay focused," Sarah barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to maintain our objectives. If we lose control, we'll be lost." Kira nodded, but as she looked around the room, she could see the cracks forming within her team. The psychological strain was evident on their faces, and the fear was beginning to morph into something darker, paranoia. They were not just battling the unknown of Proxima Centauri b. They were wrestling with their own demons. As the whispers grew louder, Kira felt an unexpected resolve. This was not just about exploration anymore. It was about survival, both physically and mentally. The choices they made in the coming moments would shape their destinies and perhaps the fate of humanity itself. And then, without warning, the screens went dark, plunging them into the abyss. The whispers ceased, leaving only an oppressive silence. Kira's breath quickened as she realized that whatever lay ahead would test not just their scientific acumen, but the very fabric of their humanity. They had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back. As the oppressive silence hung over them, Kira's mind raced. She could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down, invading her thoughts. Had they ventured too far into the unknown? The whispers had felt so real, so tangible, like a voice from the deep calling her name. She shook her head, trying to dispel the fog clouding her thoughts. Was it fear or something more insidious? Dr. Marcus Lee leaned against his console, his face pale under the flickering emergency lights. "What just happened?" he murmured, almost to himself. The confident engineer who had once led them through countless technical challenges now appeared frail and unsure. Kira's heart ached for him. She had always admired Marcus's resilience. But now, shadows of doubt loomed large in his eyes, mirroring her own. In that moment, a new sound pierced the silence, a low resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the control room. It was neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between. Kira felt the vibrations in her bones, and they triggered a buried memory. A childhood night spent at her grandmother's house when the wind howled outside, and her grandmother would tell her stories of entities that thrived in the dark, feeding on fear and despair. Kira had always dismissed those tales, attributing them to her grandmother's vivid imagination. Yet now, the lines between fantasy and reality blurred. "Dangerously, do you hear that?" Jason broke in, his voice laced with an unsettling mix of intrigue and terror. "It's changing. It's almost like it's responding to us." "Responding?" Sarah echoed, her skepticism faltering. "What if it's a warning? Or worse, a lure?" Kira felt a wave of nausea wash over her. They had come to Proxima Centauri b to uncover the secrets of an alien world, yet it felt as if the planet was peeling back layers of their own psyches, revealing hidden fears they had long buried. She glanced at Sarah, realizing that the astrophysicist's cool demeanor had cracked. The tension among the team was palpable. Even the strongest among them were beginning to fray. "Maybe this is what we were meant to find," Kira said, a conviction rising within her. "We need to confront it, understand it. If this thing is sentient, it could hold the key to everything we've sought: knowledge, connection, even peace." Marcus scoffed, but Kira's resolve was firm. "Or it could hold our doom," he shot back, his eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape route. But it was Jason's next words that sent a chill down Kira's spine. What if it knows us? What if it knows our fears, our secrets? His voice trembled, but there was a spark of something else, an understanding that perhaps they were not just trespassers in this alien realm. They were intruding on something that knew them intimately. Suddenly, Kira's mind raced back to the last argument she had with her grandmother, the last time they spoke before her grandmother passed. In her frustration, Kira had dismissed the old stories as mere fables. She had laughed, believing they had no place in the scientific world she was committed to. What if her grandmother had been right? What if these legends held a deeper truth? A heavy sense of dread settled in. Were they merely scientists, or were they unwitting participants in a much larger cosmic game? The weight of her past, the unresolved rift with her grandmother, pressed on her heart. A realization dawned. This mission was not just about exploration. It was about confronting the very fears she thought she had left behind. As the hum grew louder, the lights flickered once more, and Kira saw the faces of her team, haunted, desperate, and now almost unrecognizable. They were trapped in a web of their own making, and the very essence of the darkness around them threatened to unravel not just their mission, but their sanity. The unknown was no longer an abstract concept. It was a living entity, one that sought to expose their deepest vulnerabilities. With a newfound sense of urgency, Kira knew they had to act. But as she opened her mouth to speak, the hum morphed into a deafening roar, drowning out her thoughts. In that moment, she realized they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Whatever awaited them in the darkness, it was ready to reveal its truth, one that would change everything. As the roar swallowed them, Kira felt the ground beneath her tremble, a pulse reverberating through the floor like the heartbeat of an ancient creature awakening. She locked eyes with Marcus, who stood frozen, his breath hitching as he battled the dual demons of terror and disbelief. Jason, too, was transfixed, his gaze fixed on the swirling shadows that seemed to dance and writhe, forming shapes that flickered at the edges of their vision. "Get a grip, everyone," Kira shouted, her voice barely rising above the cacophony. The urgency in her tone cut through the fear, momentarily rallying her team. "We need to focus. This is our chance to understand what we're dealing with." Sarah, who had been leaning heavily against a console, straightened up, her face pale, but determined. "We can't let it control us. We need to confront whatever this is, together." The words ignited a flicker of defiance in the others. Jason nodded, his expression shifting from dread to determination. "Right. We're not here to be victims. We're scientists. We find answers, not just terror." But just as they began to gather their resolve, the shadows coalesced, forming a figure that loomed larger than life, its outline indistinct yet undeniably imposing. It seemed to pulse with energy, feeding off their fear, feeding off their hesitation. Kira could feel the creature's presence in her bones, a primal instinct screaming at her to flee. Yet, rooted in place, she felt an undeniable pull, a need to face it head-on. "Stay together," Kira commanded, her voice steadying the wavering resolve of her team. "We confront it as one." As they stepped forward, the figure flickered, revealing fleeting glimpses of their innermost fears. Marcus's childhood isolation, Jason's self-doubt, Sarah's fear of failure. Kira felt her own memories flood her mind, her grandmother's, tales, the anger that had severed their bond, and the regret that clung to her like a shadow. The entity seemed to feed on their vulnerabilities, and Kira knew they had to break free from this mental prison. "Look at it," Kira shouted, her heart pounding with both fear and fierce determination. "It's trying to manipulate us. It thrives on our weaknesses." In that moment, Marcus stepped forward, his features shifting from fear to clarity. "No, we won't let it define us." He raised his hands as if to shield himself from the dark force. "We came here to explore the unknown, not to be consumed by it," the entity responded, its roar morphing into a cacophony of anguished screams that echoed their own fears. Kira felt the pressure build within her, the weight of their collective dread threatening to crush them. But this was the decisive moment. They could either surrender to the darkness or break its hold. "Together," Kira shouted, her voice ringing with authority. "Let's reclaim our power. We are more than our fears." In a surge of collective will, the team embraced their vulnerabilities. They stood united, confronting the entity not with fear, but with resolve. The shadows writhed in protest, but their newfound strength began to push back against the darkness. The roar waned and the figure flickered. Kira felt a shift in the atmosphere. The entity, once menacing, now seemed to shrink in size, its power waning in the face of their unity. But just as victory appeared within their grasp, a new, sinister energy rippled through the room. It was a warning that their confrontation was far from over, and the true nature of the darkness loomed just beyond the horizon. As the shadows twisted and recoiled, the air grew thick with tension. The entity diminished before them, its form breaking apart like wisps of smoke in a gale. Kira felt a surge of triumph, but it was laced with an undercurrent of exhaustion. The confrontation had taken its toll. Each member of the team bore the marks of their struggle. Sweat beaded on their foreheads and their breathing was ragged, echoing the remnants of fear still lingering in their chests. "Did we win?" Jason croaked, his voice a brittle whisper as he sank to the floor, leaning against the console for support. His eyes, once filled with dread, now shimmered with a mix of relief and disbelief. Kira noticed the tremor in his hands, a subtle reminder of the demons they had just faced. "We did," Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. But as he looked around, the shadows still flickered at the edges of their perception, hinting that the battle was only the beginning. "But it feels incomplete." Sarah, still standing, glanced at the remnants of the dark figure, which now resembled a swirling mist, barely held together. "It's like it's waiting for something. We may have pushed it back, but it's not gone," Kira nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of their shared trauma. She could feel the scars of the encounter already forming, both physically and emotionally. The entity had not only preyed on their fears, but had also left echoes of doubt and uncertainty in their minds. We need to regroup and analyze what just happened. There's more to this than we understand. As they gathered their bearings, Kira noticed a flicker of light amidst the dissipating shadows. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, drawing her closer despite the lingering dread. "What is that?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus stepped forward, squinting at the glowing object nestled within the remnants of the dark entity. "It looks like a fragment of it?" He reached out cautiously, and the moment his fingers brushed the light, it exploded into 1,000 motes, scattering across the room and embedding themselves into the walls. The team recoiled, but Kira felt a strange warmth wash over her, as if the light had recognized them as allies rather than foes. Suddenly, the console behind Sarah sparked, and the screens flickered to life. Data streamed across them, revealing cryptic symbols and images that had not been there before. "What is this?" Sarah exclaimed, her voice a mix of excitement and apprehension as she began to decipher the information. "It looks like there's more to explore, more of these entities, and they're connected to something much bigger." Fear mingled with curiosity as Kira exchanged glances with her team. They had faced a darkness that had shaken them to their core, yet it seemed only a door to deeper mysteries had been opened. "We have to find out what this means," Kira said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "We can't let this be the end." As they gathered around the console, the atmosphere shifted, filled with a charged anticipation. Each member of the team bore the marks of their confrontation. Kira, with her newfound scars of leadership, Jason's lingering self-doubt, Marcus's determination teetering on the edge of fear, and Sarah's unyielding curiosity. The remnants of their battle had forged an unbreakable bond, one that would lead them into the unknown. But as the screens continued to flash with enigmatic symbols, whispers of a greater darkness echoed in the corners of Kira's mind. She felt the weight of their choices ahead, the burden of the mysteries they had yet to unravel. "Let's do this," she declared, igniting a fire of purpose within each of them. "Together." And with that, the team plunged into the depths of the unknown, ready to confront whatever awaited them, knowing that the shadows would always linger, waiting for the next moment of weakness. As they delved deeper into the glowing symbols on the console, a chilling realization crept into Kira's mind. The very essence of their fears, the shadows of their pasts, seemed to take form in the data streaming before them. Each flicker of light unveiled a truth they had long buried: Kira's childhood nightmares, Jason's haunting memories of loss, Marcus's relentless battle against his insecurities, and Sarah's unquenchable thirst for knowledge that had often led her astray. Suddenly, the screens erupted into chaos, displaying grotesque images that twisted and turned, reflecting their darkest thoughts. "It's showing us our fears," Jason stammered, his voice laden with dread. "But they're not just memories. They're alive." Kira's heart sank as she felt the shadows coalesce around them, embodying their fears. From the corner of her eye, she spotted a figure, an exact replica of herself, but twisted and malevolent, a reflection of her deepest insecurities. "No, this can't be real," she whispered, backing away as the entity grinned, its eyes filled with malice. As they struggled against the manifestations of their own minds, the team quickly realized that they were not merely fighting a dark force. They were battling the very essence of their fears made flesh. The shadows surged, and one by one, they found themselves overpowered by the grotesque versions of themselves, the nightmare they had fought so hard to escape now materializing before them. In a moment of clarity, Kira understood the truth. Their worst fears had come to life, and there was no escaping them. As the darkness engulfed them, the realization struck. This was not just a battle. It was the beginning of a haunting cycle where their nightmares would forever intertwine with reality. Console fell silent, and the room dimmed, leaving only the echo of their lost hopes. Kira's last thought before the darkness consumed her was a chilling question. Was this truly the end, or merely the beginning of a nightmare that would never cease? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. For more stories like this, share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.